My guest today is Lucrezia Reichlin. Lucrezia is a professor of economics at the London Business School. Her research focuses on econometrics and macroeconomics. She pioneered nowcasting, an innovative method for making economic predictions during crisis. She holds a PhD in economics from NYU and has previously been the director of research at the European Central Bank. She sits on the boards of several research and policy institutions. How worried should we be about Italy? How are the growth prospects? What's your sense about where does the Italian economy go from here?
Well, I've been worried about Italy for a long time. So if I were worried before the coronavirus epidemic, so now I'm really worried.
And we and me were always fighting. You always said Italy was worse, and I said Spain was worse, but it was Italy that finally you were right.
Yes. So I don't know. I mean, I think, the debt is projected to be something like 170, 160, 170, something of that order.
Yeah.
And, if even in the optimistic scenarios in which we will go back to the historical growth rate, this is an historical growth rate which is barely above 1%, above 0%. So it is below 1% on average. It has been, and so, I mean, it's easy to do the calculation. Of course, it all depends on where interest rates will be. And so for us, it's very important that the European central banks will be there as a buyers of sovereign papers. Assuming that there will be, a little bit of a recovery and that the interest rate will be essentially zero, because this is what we're talking about, then I think that Italy, and also given the action of the ECB, at least for the next year, the access to the market and the rollover of the debt will be guaranteed. But, it is clear that any little uncertainty about action from the European central banks, and actually yesterday the decision from the German Court of Justice is not very reassuring, although it is not a decision about the current program. However, of course, it sends waves in the market that the flexibility of the ECB program is not guaranteed. I mean, all this, it is kind of put us in a situation in which we are just one step, before some kind of, maybe, liquidity crisis of the sort of 2011 or 2012. So the country is also very angry, and the anti-European sentiments are rampant, and not only everywhere also, not only, the anti-European parties, but for example, I've had a lot of meetings during these days also with, with managers, with people from the corporate sectors, and, they feel that Italy has really not gained from entering the euro in particular, and that the EU also has not been a good thing for them.
So this was something I wanted to really ask you about. I mean, this anger and the political uncertainty coming from Italy. I mean, this is very, very well. It's very new in the last 10 years. Italy has been always one of the most pro-European countries, and somehow Italians feel that they've been always doing the homework as a country, or trying to keep these primary surpluses, trying to do reforms, etc. And at the end, they end up always in the same place. I mean, is there really a way that this consensus breaks and that Italy, do you see, I mean, let me just give you one person's view. Luigi Zingales the other day in this same talk, he told me he really does think Italy has an outside option, and that China could be an alternative, that Italy could quit the euro and change geopolitically radically. Is there really a possibility that Italy?
Well, I mean, I know what Luigi thinks, and I think that maybe Luigi doesn't understand Europe and the Italian history with respect to the European Union very well. I mean, Luigi is a great economist, but has lived in the US maybe for too long. I think that the Italian participation to the European project goes very fast, and I think it's really of enormous geopolitical importance for Italy to be with Europe. Now, this doesn't mean that if things go very badly, then Italy will just decide to go out. But I think that Italians will be scared to jump into an adventure in which they will leave their historical allies and go with China. There is also another reason that Italy has done the homework in a sense, but has had a fight with its own demon. I mean, Italy has lost competitiveness basically since the early 90s for reasons which are not related to the euro. It is something, it's a country, it's a very complicated country which is very diverse and very heterogeneous inside. So with big sectors of the Italian economy which have basically never made the jump and embrace globalization, let alone Europe, but just the ability to compete in international markets. Our companies are too small. And we have, very, very good, parts of we have a strong productive sectors in certain areas, but this is, compensated by very, poor performance in others. We have a very weak state, and this has been traditionally since Italian unification. So a very weak cohesion and social capital, if you want, in Italy. So that all these very inefficient states, and also very inefficient, not only the states, but also the judiciary and, many, parts of what constitutes the state in a kind of broad way. So it has been very difficult for Italy to reform this. And in a way, Europe had been a hope of having an external anchor. And I think Italy is not the only country which had hoped for Europe to basically be that external constraints that would have pushed them into something, into join, a real European way of life, a European way of organizing society. And when I say European, I basically say Northern European. So the external anchor has not been enough. And as we know that, integration does not necessarily favor convergence. Actually, it could do exactly the opposite. So in that sense, I mean, if we have to rethink Europe, it's not just a matter of money, but it's a matter of thinking of what kind of institutions, federal institution we need to favor some process of convergence. And, all the European construct is based on this idea of subsidiarity, which is very limited. We are doing together only what is really, the minimum necessaries. But actually, maybe now we have to rethink that if we want to put the pieces together, to keep the pieces together, including the more backward part of Europe, then we have to think of different type of institutions. So I think that this is the discussion that the Italians, at least the ones who are conscious of the importance of remaining in Europe, want to have.